The letter had promised her a husband, a home, and a future. What it had not promised was the crushing silence of an empty platform in the middle of nowhere, New Mexico, with nothing but the dry wind and the ache of humiliation pressing down on her chest like a stone. Clara Beaumont had traveled 3 days by rail from her home in Savannah, Georgia, leaving behind everything she had ever known: her small rented room above the seamstress shop, her fading hope of finding love in a city that had never once looked at her twice. She was 24 years old, plain-spoken, hard-working, and brave in the way that only the truly desperate can be brave. When the advertisement had appeared in the church bulletin, "Reputable man of property in Cimarron, New Mexico, seeks honest woman for companionship and partnership in life," she had read it 3 times before allowing herself to believe it was meant for her. His name had been Reverend Harold Sutton, a widower of 40, who had written her letters so warm and so full of scripture that she had nearly wept each time she unfolded them. He had described his land, his cattle, his loneliness. He had described a porch with 2 rocking chairs that sat empty every evening. Clara had allowed herself to imagine sitting in one of them, but Reverend Harold Sutton had not come. And now, 2 hours past the arrival time he had written in his final letter, Clara sat at the edge of the Cimarron station platform with a small trunk behind her, 2 burlap sacks at her feet, a rolled blanket, and a letter in her trembling hands. The very last letter he had written, reading it again as though some hidden line in it might explain what had gone so terribly wrong. Her eyes were red, her cheeks were wet. She did not try to hide it because there was no one around to see, or so she believed. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the quiet courage it takes to keep going when life humiliates you, please like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs it today, and subscribe to this channel. Stories like Clara's deserve to be heard. She had written to Harold 6 weeks before her departure, and he had confirmed the date. She had arranged her own train ticket, packed everything she owned into those few bags, and told her landlady not to save the room. There was nothing to go back to. The women at her church had thrown her a small goodbye gathering with lemon, cake and shy smiles, telling her she was brave, telling her she deserved happiness. Clara had believed them. She had allowed herself, just for a few weeks, to feel chosen. And now she sat in the dust of abandonment, wondering if she had ever truly been chosen at all, or merely convenient for a man who had since found a better option and lacked the decency to write and say so. The letter in her hands shook in the wind. She smoothed it against her knee and stared at his handwriting, neat, careful, pastoral, and felt something inside her go very quiet and very cold. Not angry, not yet. Just hollow in the way a bell sounds hollow before it rings its last note. What Clara did not know, what she could not have known from where she sat with her grief bowed over her lap, was that a man had been watching her from the far end of the platform for nearly 10 minutes. He had ridden in from the western stretch of the Cimarron range, stopped at the station to collect a delivery of tools, and had seen her the moment he swung down from his horse. He had not stared. He was not that kind of man, but he had noticed, in the careful way that quiet people notice everything, the trunk, the bags, the posture of someone who had arrived expecting to be received and had instead found only air and silence. His name was Thomas Calloway. He was 31 years old, lean from years of ranch work, and weathered in the face, but not in the heart. He had lost his mother young and had spent the better part of his adult life learning the particular language of people who carry sorrow without making a sound about it. He recognized it now in the curve of this woman's shoulders, in the way her fingers kept smoothing that letter as though trying to press the pain out of it. He did not rush. He never rushed. He collected his crate from the station master, tied it to his saddle, and then walked slowly, steadily, down the length of that platform toward her, not with purpose that felt intrusive, but with the kind of deliberate calm that says, "I see you, and I am not going to pretend otherwise." Clara did not look up until his boots came into the edge of her vision. When she did raise her eyes, she found him standing a respectful distance away. hat in hand, his expression carrying none of the pity she feared, and all of the quiet concern she had forgotten was possible. He asked her simply whether she had somewhere to be, and whether she needed help getting there. Clara looked at this sun-worn stranger for a long moment, then back at the letter, then at the empty road that stretched beyond the station toward a life that no longer existed. And then, with the dignity of a woman who has nothing left to lose and everything left to gain, she told him the truth, all of it, without shame, without softening. She told him about Harold, about Georgia, about the 2 rocking chairs she had let herself imagine. Thomas Calloway listened to every word without interrupting once. When she was finished, he nodded slowly, set his hat back on his head, and told her that the town of Cimarron had a good boarding house run by a widow named Agnes Ford, who took in women in hard circumstances and expected nothing in return but a little help in the kitchen. He told her he would walk her there himself if she was willing. He told her she had not come all this way to be left on a platform. Clara stood, straightened her dress, picked up her bag, and walked beside him into the afternoon light. 2 strangers moving through the dust of the American frontier toward something neither of them yet had words for, but both of them could feel beginning. If this story reached something inside you, if you felt Clara's loneliness, or were moved by the quiet grace of Thomas's kindness, please like this video, share it with someone who believes love still exists in unexpected places, and leave a comment below. Your response means more than you know. Before we close, tell us in the comments, have you ever been surprised by a stranger's kindness at a moment when you needed it most? We would love to read your story. Clara never heard from Reverend Harold Sutton again. She did not need to. Within a season, she had found steady work helping Agnes at the boarding house, had learned the names of every family on the Western Range, and had begun to understand that being chosen is not always what saves you. Sometimes it is the simple act of choosing yourself, of standing up from that platform, of trusting the stranger walking toward you in the golden dust of a New Mexico afternoon. And Thomas Calloway, for his part, never once regretted pausing at that station. He had come for a crate of tools. He had found something he had not known to look for. A woman who carried her heartbreak with her chin up, who told the truth even when it cost her, and who, given even the smallest act of human kindness, walked forward without looking. Back, Thomas began stopping by the boarding house more often after that, and first with practical excuses: a delivery for Agnes, a question about the road conditions, a borrowed pot returned. But Clara always knew, and Agnes always smiled into her apron, pretending not to notice. By the time the autumn winds swept golden across the Cimarron plains, Thomas had finally found the courage to bring 2 rocking chairs onto his porch. And this time, neither one sat empty.